Okay, so Be'ezus Hashem, we begin Shar Hakas, the gate of anger. So this is going to be quite unique, and we're going to see the downsides to anger, and they're going to be quite severe. And I think some of us will be able to, we'll all be able to relate to them, whether we see that in ourselves or more easily we see that in others probably. But we'll see that everything that Chazal is saying here is true till today, that people have not changed that much from those times to these times. So let us begin. Hakas hi midah ra. Okay, kas is a midah ra. It's a bad midah. I'm just looking back. Okay, so by Daiga, I'm wondering, does the Orchos Tzadikim always introduce midas like that? So it's a pretty straightforward statement. Hakas hi midah ra. So going back to Daiga, to worry that we saw together, he writes there, Zois hamidah hi ra b'roiv inyanea. It's bad in most of its applications. Obviously, by Simcha, he's not going to write it's a bad midah because Simcha is a good midah. Okay, let's go through the whole. But as we go through the Sefer, we'll try to keep track if this is unique in the sense that the Orchos Tzadikim introduces it with this disclaimer that Kas is a bad caricature. The Kasher Hagarav Michali Haguf, just like Garav is a certain disease that was mentioned in the Teichecha, in the rebuke, I think in Kiseitze coming up in a few weeks. Just like this Garav is a Chali Haguf, is a physical malady. So it's interesting. Kas is a choli hanefesh. Now, today we use the term choli hanefesh to refer to mental illness. In Hebrew, it's called choli hanefesh. It's choli haguf. People are sick physically. It's choli hanefesh. So it's interesting. So far, at least by Daiga, the Orchos Tzadikim did not say it's a choli hanefesh. I don't think by achzarius, which is cruelty, that the Orchos Tzadikim refers to it as choli hanefesh, as a sickness. Kas, he's referring to as a sickness. It's a choli hanefesh. Amru Rabbi Seinu, so the rabbis teach us, kol hakoyis, whoever gets angry, kol minei gehenim sholten boy. A person gets angry, so gehenim it controls him. The person loses control. Shenemar, it says, a person removes kas, anger from his heart, he takes evil away from his flesh. So a person takes kas, anger away, so that he takes the evil, the ra'ah, away from himself. What's ra'ah referring to? Says the Orchos Tzadikim, it's referring to Gehenna. Shenemar, it says, that pasuk in Mishlei, Rosh L'Yom Ra is referring to the Rasha goes to Gehenna, L'Yom Ra, on the day of evil, I guess the day of his Gehenna. When he dies, he goes to Gehenna. So a person takes away kas from his heart, he's taking away Gehenna. So he loses control of himself, a person who gets angry. Not only that, so Tachtonius, it sounds like it's like the lower forces. There are these four, it's not just that he loses himself, but he's giving control to other entities to control him. As it says, Shenem, V'nosen Hashem l'cha sham leiv ragaz, v'chilyon einayim v'davei nefesh. Hashem will give you there a leiv ragaz, like a heart and heart, longing eyes, and like a tortured soul. Eze davar shemechalas einayim, what causes the eyes to long for something? Madav nefesh, and tortures the soul. Aliyom ezeh tachtonius. The person has leiv ragaz, he gets angry, the tachtonius, the lower forces will be shoylet on him, will control him. So far, what do we have? So far we have Gehenna controls him. That's number one. Number two, tachtonius control him. Whatever the difference is, I'm not sure, but two external forces will control him. V'oid, number three, Amar Rabbi Seinu, kol hakoyes afilu hashchina eina chashuva kenegdo. When a person is angry, so even Hashem has no chashivas in front of this person. When a person's angry, nothing is, I guess, above his anger. Nothing, Hashem, he's not going to view Hashem as being on a high level. Shenema Rasha could go va'apoi bal yidrosh, ein elokim kol mizimoisiv. A Rasha could go va'apoi when he's angry, bal yidrosh. I guess he's not being doirish Hashem. Hashem is not there as far as all his plans. Hashem is not involved. Number 4, what's the fourth bad outcome, result of anger? It affects his mind, it affects his intellect. Until now, we're saying it allows other things to control him. Now we're saying it's going to affect his intellect. He forgets his learning. Anger lies in the bosom of foolish people. And it says in Tehillim, a foolish person won't understand. So you find kas only in the chek of ksilim by ksil, and ksil doesn't understand. And it says ksil yifroi shivelas. Again, ksil is going to make mistakes, foolish mistakes. Number 5, ubiyadua, and until now we're talking about what kas causes. And now the Orchos Tzadikim is going to tell us something that kas is indicative of. So what's kas indicative of? Anyone who's an angry person, I don't know if this means, does this mean that someone gets angry once? That shows at that point in his life he has more transgressions than mitzvahs. Maybe it does, but definitely a person who is chronically angry, an angry person, it's obvious, it's known that his averas they're greater than his zchuyos, than his merits. Like it says, the Baal Chema Rav Pasha. The Baal Chema, the person who's angry, Rav Pasha is going to have a lot of pishonim, a lot of rebellious acts against Hashem. I guess because everything loses value in his eyes. When he's angry, a person's always angry, he's basically thinking of himself, and he's not going to be doing the mitzvahs. His punishment is great. Shenamar Gadol Chema Noise Oynish. A person with a lot of anger, a lot of chema, will have to bear his punishment. So the stage here is being set. The introductory paragraph on anger is a person should realize when he gets angry, he's giving up control of himself. That's point number 1. And that's 1. And point number 2 in this paragraph is that everything else loses chashivas. When a person is in that angry state, there's no Hashem, there's nothing, there's no inhibitions. He's just going to gush forward and make tragic mistakes. You see a person who's angry and he's machzik in his anger. He holds on to his anger. They do not pay attention to what they're doing. They don't see themselves. They don't understand what they're doing. They'll do many things when they're angry that they would never do were they not to be angry. Right? That's another proof that when a person is angry, so his intellect is not working. Because when he calms down, he never would have done that. There's remorse afterwards. Because anger takes the person's seichel, takes his mind, his intellect out from inside him, until he gets more and more angry, and it's going to cause machloikis, and it's going to cause other bad feelings. It's impossible. Machloikis is one of the worst averas that a yid can do, to take away shalom. Kodesh Baruch Hu wants shalom. A person who gets involved in machloikis, and he's machzik in machloikis, and ego gets involved, and anger is involved. So he's going to be committing chatoim gedolim, tremendous sins. Amar Eliyahu, the Rabbi Yehuda, Eliyahu Navi told Rabbi Yehuda, Gemara Brachas, I'll give you a piece of advice, Eliyahu Navi, right? If you come to us, we for sure listen to him. I'll give you a piece of advice. You want to be a successful Jew, listen to this. Don't get angry and you won't sin. It's a pretty chashuv statement, yeah? I mean, just don't get angry. Don't get angry, you won't sin. That's what he told him. The Gemara says, it's an Erev, and things also in Bamitzia, that there are three things a person is nikr. So the ones he doesn't bring here are kisoi, with his pocket. He's generous, he gives stock up. Bekoisoi, with his cup. When he drinks, how he drinks. The one that's relevant to us is Bekasoi. It's an amazing thing, right? If you want to understand, who a person is, or if someone's in Shidduchim, and they want to know how the person really is. So try to see them when they're angry. Now, you have to ask the shotgun, what's he like? What's she like when they're angry? That's a good question to ask. But actually, my wife didn't ask that question. She didn't ask the question. So that's what the Gemara is saying. A person is nicker b'kasser. He's nicker in his anger. Ki be'esa kas adam nicker. Im yizgaber kasser al chachmasoi v'ois in yonim be'esa kas v'lohem hagas chachma. If he's going to let his anger overpower him, and he's going to do things that he otherwise wouldn't do against his chachma. But then nicker kasser. Then if you see he's a kaisen, im yizgaber chachmas al kasser. But if his chachma outweighs his kas, and he's not going to do anything as a result of his anger. In other words, it's interesting. He's saying that the person's angry, but he doesn't act on that anger. Then you see the person's chachma. And the only way that a person can catch himself when he's angry and not do something he regrets is by doing what we're doing right now, by sitting down and learning about the midah of kas and then protecting oneself. Once you read this and you realize that a kaisan, there's no holds barred, nothing's going to stop him, and we've all been in situations where things were said that had the person would have been calmer, it wouldn't have happened. I spoke about this last Yom Kippur. I said that I have this rule that I try to keep, that if someone says something to me that I don't like, that I feel is wrong, l'chatchila, I wait 2 weeks. Most of the time, there's no need to catch the guy on the spot, right? There's nothing the guy said something or he did something. So there's nothing that by stopping him right now, I'm going to gain versus stopping him in 2 weeks. Nothing will be lost if you wait 2 weeks. Now, often I'll forget by the time that time comes. And if not, I'm it's just not worth it. I'm not going to come to him 2 weeks later and say something. But if it's something that's really important, then a person would. B'diavad 2 days. L'chatchila, it's 2 weeks. B'diavad 48 hours. And b'diavad should be b'diavad to the next morning. So many things happen in the daytime. You wake up in the morning, I don't know, there's certain clarity you have, and thoughts that I had the night before, all of a sudden are all gone, and I changed my mind a little bit. After a whole day, a person's worked up. Wait till the next morning. When a person is, so what he's saying is that I always thought Pshat in the Gemara is that a person is nicker, you can tell who he is if he gets angry. But the Orchos Tzadikim is not saying that. He's saying that no. So you shouldn't, but everyone gets angry. What does he do when he's angry? Is he able to control himself? Or does he fly off the handle? That's how a person is nicker, whether he has his kas under control. The wise man said, it's more Psachim, Shloisha Kadosh Baruch Hu I Havan. There are 3 people that Hashem loves. And one of them is Misheinu Koyas. Someone doesn't get angry. Hashem loves that person. I guess that implies that someone who gets angry, Hashem doesn't love them. That's what it sounds like. Chazal tell us, a kapton. So a kapton, I have yet to find a really good translation for the word makpid on that. Right? Someone who's particular, right? He is particular on many things. He can't be an effective educator. So if he gets very angry all the time, whenever he asks a question, so the students are afraid to ask. They're afraid to ask. And if he's really angry, so he's not going to have the heart to explain it to his Talmidim. He's not going to have the patience to. The Gam Yoshuahem Derech Kas is going to answer them. He'll respond to them in an angry way. They're not going to understand. They'll be afraid to ask. When they ask, if he's all worked up and upset, he's not going to be able to explain it properly. And they're not going to understand. And the advice to the students, even if your Rebbe is angry at you, Yisharu, ask him, V'yadaktiku, and ask him again, don't worry about your Rebbe's anger, don't fight with him, Anyone whose Rebbe gets angry at them one time, and Shtayim in a second time, the Rebbe gets angry twice, and he's quiet. That'll serve as a segula. He'll be able to understand the difference between monetary law and capital punishment. And the Gemara says in Brachas, those are the two hardest areas of halacha. And if his Rebbe yells at him, he still asks, and he gets yelled at, he still asks, he'll be zoichet to become a big Talmud Chacham. So this paragraph has to be explained because there are a number of Gedolei Yisrael from the previous generations, even from this generation, who were known to yell and get angry at the Talmidim. It was a commonplace. Let me take that back. Not get angry, they would yell at their Talmidim. And in my yeshiva, Artzi Kaplan, in my yeshiva, the Rosh Yeshiva feels that the way to mechanech people is that his Talmidim, they have to earn their kasha. So he says this from time to time. He says it straight out. He says that if you're going to come to me with an answer to a question, I'm going to try to knock it off. Even if you're right with your answer or you're right with your question, he feels you have to earn the question. And sometimes he'll say very strong things. I mean, he never insults the person, but you don't know what you're talking about. You're not holding in the sugya. A chutzpah, you come to asking a question, you're not holding in tosfos. He'll say things like that, but he's not really angry. It's a method of chinuch, of being mechanech. There's one of my famous mice about Rabbi Soloveitchik from YU, where he's sitting in shir, he's giving a shir, and they were learning the tosfos. So I think he had the Bachram read, so they're reading the tosfos. So he asked the Bachar, what's the Marshal's kasha on his tosfos? The Bachar says, I didn't learn the Marshal. So he asked another student there, no, what's the Marshal's kasha? Didn't learn the Marshal. Asked the third student, what's the Marshal's kasha? Didn't learn the Marshal. He says, I don't understand. You're learning the tosfos, you don't learn the Marshal, and he was yelling at them. He slammed his Gemara shut, and he walked out of the room. How do you learn tosfos and you don't learn the Marshal? How do you do that? He showed his anger. He yelled at them. He slammed his Gemara. Shir is over. I guarantee you one thing, that everybody in that room from that day forward, every tosfos they learned with the Marshal. So that's not what the Orchos Tzadikim is talking about. He's talking about a Rebbe who's pashut, he's seething, he's just angry at his thick-headed Talmidim. They can't comprehend his eloquent shir. And the Talmidim see that, and there's a real anger there, as opposed to a method of education, of chinuch, where the Rebbe wants the Talmud to earn the kasha, where the Rebbe wants to be mechanech the Talmud what to do properly. That's not what the Orchos Tzadikim is talking. He's talking about pashut, a person getting mamish upset and angry and frustrated with his Talmidim, which should never happen. The angry person does not find favor in people's eyes. No one likes an angry person. An angry person does not really have friends. They don't have real friends. They'll have acquaintances. They'll be buddy-buddy with some people. But there's always this underlying tension, and the person doesn't have friends. He has no chen be'enei habriyos. Who's sanua be'eneiim. He's hated in their eyes. And since people don't like him, if someone gets angry, he says, hate him. And someone who you don't like tells you something, I'm automatically wired not to listen to it. You kind of look at it already negatively. But if you could be a Talmud Chacham and he has Maisim Toivim, he's a big Baal Chesed. No one's going to learn from him. A kasan, a person who's angry, no one wants to learn from him. A kasan who koived al b'nei beisai, he's a weight to his family. Hashem and Tamid kasu kunasai, that hear his anger and his complaints all the time. It weighs down on them. Takala can come to a takala. If a person puts too much fear, it's a Gemara in Shabbos. A person's matla emi yisayr beisai. A person puts too much fear in his house is no good. Like the Ma'aser of Rabbi Schreck ben Gamliel, where he was matla, and they were so scared they almost gave him ma'achalas asuras, forbidden food, because they were afraid to disappoint him. I'm always medayik that it says a person should not be matil ema yaseira. A person should not set a tone in the house of too or excessive fear. Fear is good. Ema, that's fine. But Ema Yisera, there's a certain line where too much fear is going to lead to takalas, the bad things. Hakasin eno mavir al midosav, eno moichel. The person, the angry person, is not mavir al midosav. He doesn't forgive. He doesn't give in to the other person. He's not mevater. The eno moichel, he doesn't forgive anyone. Afhu noikim v'noiter tamin. He's always looking for revenge, constantly. So it's interesting. I mean, obviously, in the eyes of Hashem, a kason is no good. Hashem, he doesn't view Hashem as being anything really, and Hashem doesn't love him. It seems the Gemara himself says. But additionally, it's very destructive for the person in the context of community, of society, because his family, no one's interested in being misyaches to him. No one's interested in having him around. So it's quite self-destructive to be a kason. So we'll hold here, and Hashem on Tuesday we'll pick up with the next paragraph.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. Have a good night and a good Shabbos, everyone.
You too. Thank you.